I'm a business owner. I'm a bit confused. Should I make an application? Because what is happening, everyone is saying that, okay, why does your business does not have an Android application, iOS application? Why you are not having a website? Why you are having a website when everyone is moving to applications? This is so much confusing. In this video, we are going to discuss, do you actually need an application for your business? Because this question is going to cater to everyone who is thinking of having a business app but not able to decide, should I go or should I take this route or not? So let's try to understand first of all why you should be having an application. Right now we are not going to discuss on this part like should you have it or not, but we are going to discuss why you should be having the application. So first of all, obviously it gives you opportunity to reach new potential customers or new audience if I talk about, because if I talk about Google Play Store on Android and Apple App Store on Apple devices is quite an exclusive store if I talk about, where they have the 100% monopoly. So you have to understand one thing, that you have a potential to reach new customers because obviously you don't have to market a lot. Secondly, it increases your customer engagement. Now there is a reason behind that, I'll discuss that, and obviously it improves your scalability of business if I talk about. Now let's try to understand how it actually improves your customer engagement. So basically if I talk about in terms of notifications, I'm trying to make a bell right now. Okay, so it helps you improve the notifications quality. If I talk about, it works offline, it gives you seamless experience compared to an website. But now the question is, okay, all the things are fine, but what are the steps I should be taking to make this kind of a judgment? So let's try to understand what are the parameters based on which you have to make a decision. Okay, now obviously you have to first of all understand one thing which is quite important, the platform. So we have made a separate video on native applications versus hybrid applications. So you can watch this particular video on our channel. But if I have to give you a very simple scenario, a very simple answer, it is quite simple. If you want to give huge functionality and if it is actually including core functionality of the mobile phone, if I talk about the hardware of the phone, in that scenario, you should be going for that native applications route. But if you're not using those kind of functionality, it is just sort of a sake for the app. In that scenario, you can go for hybrid based applications. Now, what are the ways with which you will find out that if you need an application or not? So first of all, you have to understand, you have to make a market research. Now, why do I have to do a market research when I'm pretty much sure that I have to give it to the customers? Try to understand one thing. You are not building an application just for you. You are building your application for your customers. So do they need this application or will they be able to use the application? I'll give you a very simple scenario. Let's say your target audience is 80 plus. People who are 80 or 80 years old. Can they use a smartphone? Maybe 5%. So try to understand, if you're making this application for the wrong audience, obviously nobody's going to use it. Secondly, your audience belongs to an Android ecosystem, your audience belongs to an iOS ecosystem, or they belong to both ecosystem. This is also important because building an iOS application is totally different like building an Android application. So there are technically two applications. So you have to understand which kind of an audience you are having. Next is obviously choosing a right development company. Now, obviously there are no clear-cut answer, but you have to understand one thing. The best developer agency is not the one which is charging you least amount of money. The best developer agency who has quite an experience, if I talk about in this particular industry, and they have worked with your kind of business because they already understand what are your requirements and they can even suggest you. The next thing is obviously building a minimal viable product if I talk about. Now this is very important. Now if you are going for a route, you have to understand one thing. Instead of investing 100% of your resources on building the application, it is better that you spend just 10% of your resources in the application and then take a decision. It is better to lose 10% of your money than to lose 100% of your money. So it is better that you go for a minimal viable product if I may, compared to going for a fully fledged launch if I talk about and then making a decision. Then obviously the performance is quite important. Now here is something which is quite technical. If you want your application to actually have some hardware capabilities, then going for the application is the only way for you. But if your application can work without the hardware capabilities, in that scenario, you can skip the process of getting an application, because that is how things are going to work. Obviously, you have to understand in terms of security measures. So do you have the required infrastructure? Now, recently I was discussing with some of the clients, they were working in the medical sectors, if I talk about. So I mentioned that you have to actually have some compliances related to medical, otherwise this is going to be a huge blunder for you. Now, when they realized that they have to follow the compliances, they decided not to go for an application. Now, I'm not saying that you have to take decision like that, because obviously as a company, it is our responsibility to make sure that they are having the right understanding. But try to understand one thing, you have to follow all the security measures, because if you're adding something which is going to give you some marketing, obviously you are also adding people who are going to try to steal your data. The next point is obviously how would you be earning from an application. So if you have a business model already ready for you, so obviously you can start thinking on that and you can start implementing. But let's say you don't have any business model around application, then you have to start thinking about it, because ultimately if I talk about app development is technically an investment which you're going to make. Later it may become an expense for you if you don't have a proper right business model. The next point obviously is determine cost of developing an application. Now, obviously in this scenario, you can actually reach out to various tools which are available on Google. You can also reach out to the various company. If you want us to help you out, you can always reach us as well. But try to understand in terms of determining the cost of the application, it will always depend upon what kind of a functionality you need. You won't believe we get so many clients who say we need an application. That is it. Let us know what is the pricing part of it. It is not possible for anyone to give the answer to that. Next point which you have to understand is how you would be marketing an application. If I talk about marketing an application is totally different compared to marketing a website, because for an application, a person has to go to a store and then click download. Now, if they don't have space in their mobile phone, obviously they will stop. They won't download that application. If they don't like it, they won't download that application. And until they don't download your application, they are not your customer. So you have to understand there are 3 friction points, if I may. So you have to understand how you would be marketing your application altogether. Now, obviously, if you have some questions related to things which we have discussed, put them in the comment. I have few questions with me which I want to discuss. Obviously, is building an application worth for my small business? This question has to be answered in a very specific way. What is the requirement you have which cannot be suffice if I talk about with the website, if I may? Secondly, how can I actually determine my application cost? Well, in that scenario, I would say there are various tools which are available on Google. Try to find them out, where you can mention what kind of features you want, and they will tell you these are various no-code tools, if I talk about, which are available. Finally, how can I make successful application for my small business? Obviously, that will determine by your business strategy or business model and how well you are actually choosing a development company. So with this, obviously, the video is over. If I want to give you a very simple understanding, the average cost of developing an application ranges from $8,000 to $12,000 for a very specific reason. The kind of application you're building is going to be determined by the cost of it. I would suggest do not run behind companies which say we are going to make it for very cheap amount of money, because obviously if someone is not taking huge amount of money, that means they are even not sure why they are doing this kind of thing. So in conclusion, if you want to build an application and if you're not sure, you have to follow these steps to understand if you can actually take the call. But ultimately, if you need any help, we are here. You can actually click the link in the description of this video or maybe in the comment section, and we can help you out and we can understand should you go for an application or you should not go for an application. If you're planning to go for an application, what would be the right strategy? So with this, thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one.